What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG, aka the Random Black Gamer, bringing you a video on something I didn't expect to talk about, and that is the recent announcement of Akira Toriyama's passing. If you guys aren't aware, if you haven't really been online like that or on big social media platforms such as Twitter where things trend a lot, Akira Toriyama has been buzzing around the blogosphere. You've been seeing a lot of hashtag thank you Akira Toriyama, which is well warranted because this man has produced some awesome things to us. One of the most notable things that he's produced is Dragon Ball, and a lot of people have just been talking about it. Now me, I feel like I have to make this video because if you guys aren't aware, I've been producing a lot of Dragon Ball Z related videos as of late, one of which is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, because I feel like that has kind of rekindled my interest in the property at large, because for the longest time I had been burnt out on Dragon Ball related things, because I wasn't really happy with how Super was. And, it was just a lot of outside noise too that played a part in that, but it feels so sad. It's already sad enough that this guy's passed, but just to know that when things are great and you're enjoying the product that he created, that he manifested out of his genius mind, it just gives you a bittersweet feeling on if you should talk about it anymore. And I'm going to continue to talk about it, but I feel like this is the best way to move forward, just giving a proper send off to one of the guys that made a major impact in my childhood. There are so many different stories I could tell you guys on how this series and franchise impacted me. I'm pretty sure you guys know me thanks largely to Dragon Ball, to Akira Toriyama. I think Akira Toriyama doesn't get enough credit for bringing us all together, because that's the thing. It's like, even if you were completely different from the person sitting beside you, there was always going to be that one-off chance that person liked Dragon Ball Z. It is such a global phenomenon. A lot of people know about it. Even if they're a casual fan looking on the outside, looking in, they know about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Especially nowadays with Super. I feel like Super has really brought the community closer, because for the longest time, over here in the West, Dragon Ball Z, people like Dragon Ball Z and they like the dubbing of Dragon Ball Z, but they weren't fully immersed in until later on, because we were so used to dubbing and hearing the English voice actors. A lot of people, since it was a property that was kind of brought over here later compared to when it originally aired, people, all they knew about was the English dub, and they kind of abhorred the Japanese sub until Super became a thing and they actually had to keep up and watch the sub if they wanted to be a part of the conversations that we were having about these episodes. So yeah, but if I were to go all the way back about my introduction to Dragon Ball, it would have to be in the form of an item that my mom brought back to me when I was around like 6 or 7 years old. I remember when she went to New Orleans, she asked me if I wanted any souvenirs, and I was like, yeah. I was like, just bring me back something cool. And she knew that I was a big fan of animes and cartoons. And one of the things she brought back, and I didn't know what this was at the time. I wasn't really familiar with Dragon Ball like I am now, or how I was in my later years. But the thing that she brought back, unbeknownst to me, was this clock, and it was shaped as a character. It was a character with blue wristbands, spiky hair, and a red gi. And anytime I set the alarm to that clock, it would blast my ears off, and it played this theme. And that theme just so happened to be the original opening intro theme to Dragon Ball, the first form of Dragon Ball Z. I know Dragon Ball is the actual name of the show in its entirety, even though they call it Dragon Ball Z over here, or in the anime it's called Dragon Ball Z, but the manga, it was mainly known as Dragon Ball before Super came along and they started kind of like going off and doing its own thing. But yeah, I got a Dragon Ball clock. It was a Goku clock, man, and I thought that was the coolest stuff ever. I don't know why. I was under the impression that it was like Ash Ketchum for some reason. I don't know, like Pokemon is another one of those big phenomenons that, hit America hard. But And this was before Dragon Ball became very popular. But I just remember that clock and I was like, man, I want to know more about this because this looks cool. Lo and behold, my uncle, who was in the military, brought these imported tapes back that featured Dragon Ball Z, and he was just going crazy about it and telling me about all these awesome fights that these characters would be having. You know, like the way he described it is like, oh yeah, the guys' hairs turn on fire and they blast each other, and I don't know what they're saying. That was my foray into Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball, and in my excitement and my enthusiasm for the franchise continued to expand. And as you know, Dragon Ball Z, it didn't really have the best starts when it came over here into the States. We had a lot of poor adaptations because America sucks at trying to make things American, you know, instead of just keeping them in their true essence. But eventually they got it right with Toonami, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people got into Dragon Ball Z around that time in the late 90s, early 2000s was peak entertainment, especially when it came to anime. Like that big boom was still there, still in its infancy when it comes to popularity and overall notoriety, but that was the best time to be an anime fan. And Dragon Ball Z was at the forefront. You know, that Toonami block was filled with a lot of Dragon Ball Z movies. I believe the Ocean dub was still doing their things, which I always tell people the Ocean dub is essentially the blueprint for Dragon Ball Z dubs, because this is based off of testimonies from the Funimation cast, which you guys do praise. You know, I know a lot of people praise Linda Young and Christopher Sabat as Vegeta and Sean Shamel as Goku, but they've admitted that the Ocean dub was the template that they pretty much just tried to emulate until they kind of got into their own groove, you know. So that's when I was getting into Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and it was just making all kinds of waves. I'm not sure you guys had this childhood, but I got picked on a lot, you know. In a predominantly black school where you are expected to do things that fit the social norm, like play basketball, football, hang out on the streets, do all these things that people in the hood do. You know, I grew up in a rough neighborhood. If you guys, I mean, I'm pretty sure y'all don't know. I'm not saying why, if you guys know, but yeah, I grew up in a rough neighborhood where, you know, it was survival of the fittest. You had to be tough. You had to have a tough skin and you had to keep your head on a swivel. But yeah, man, I got jumped a lot because I was a tall kid and people didn't want to get that fair fade. They rather jump me and stuff like that. And I had to, basically, you know, kind of strong arm seats on the bus because people wouldn't be willing to slide over and let me sit down on the bus. So I really had a tough time, you know, in school with certain kids in the neighborhood and stuff. But I always cherished the moments where this one thing actually made those kids turn around and accept me, you know, and became friends with me. And that was Dragon Ball Z. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of people can, you know, attest to this. When they were in middle school, and this was back in the 90s, I'm showing my age. I'm pretty old. I'm in the dirty 30s. I'm not going to give you the specific number that I'm on, but I am in the dirty 30s. But during middle school, it was always a treat to go to the computer lab or the library, and we would go to these sites that feature Dragon Ball Z photos and stuff like that. And I would print out some of my most favorite Dragon Ball Z pictures, like pictures that featured a lot of Super Saiyan forms of Goku. They even had these pictures. I'm not sure who was the original artist of them, but they had pictures of Dragon Ball Z characters as if they were black. I would just download and print all those pictures and I would draw them. You know, that's how I mastered my craft when it came to drawing. And I would have like a binder full of these pictures of Dragon Ball Z characters, and you were the big deal if you had them laminated too. You know, that was another thing. Just having a binder full of like these awesome Dragon Ball Z pictures, some of which I actually redrew just to kind of get a feel for Akira Toriyama style. One day on the bus, a kid that gave me a hard time, like. We have always had our back and forths. We didn't like each other. We hated each other. Once he saw my binder and he saw all these awesome pictures that I was drawing of characters like Goku and Vegeta, he was just like, his eyes just kind of lit up. And it was almost like I was a different person because he just sat beside me and he was like, man, you watch Dragon Ball Z? Man, I love Vegeta. I love Goku. He's like, you drew that? That right there was like a game changer to me, guys. Like, that shows you the power of Dragon Ball Z, because there were so many kids that I did not get along with, but when they saw all those pictures of Dragon Ball Z and they saw how good I was at drawing Dragon Ball Z characters, it was like the icebreaker, the official icebreaker that made us want to know more about each other. And they would ask me to draw certain pictures for them. And we never really had any kind of squabbles or back and forths from there on out because of Dragon Ball Z. And that's all accredited to Akira Toriyama. He's done so much to bring the community together. It's almost like one of those litmus tests, where you're talking to somebody and you want to know if they know about Dragon Ball Z because of how mainstream it is. And even if it is one of the more oversaturated properties when it comes to anime, it's always a treat to hear from a celebrity that's larger than life. You get that 1 second where they mention that they love Dragon Ball Z, and it just brings them down to a human level. They're just like you. They enjoy this awesome property. From MMA fighters to wrestlers that go out of their way to dress up as these characters. Like, I still remember during one WrestleMania event, the New Day, seeing Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, and Big E come out dressed up like Saiyans, with the hair and the tails and the Saiyan armor. It was just always a treat to see, and now that the animes have become bigger and more mainstream than ever, we see a lot of people dressing up as these characters at conventions and stuff, and everybody is accepted. It's no longer one of those things that's kind of like a niche that one nerdy kid is only into, and he has to suffer and get ridiculed for it. It's like Dragon Ball Z will always be that gateway anime that people harken back to, and now that it's more mainstream than ever, and it's still going strong with stuff like Super and Dragon Ball Minus, we're able to share more of our ideas and opinions about it. Like I say, that's Dragon Ball Z. I feel like that's the thing that's catapulted my channel to where it is now. Like, if you go back, if you're one of those longtime subscribers of mine, you will see that, yeah, Dragon Ball Z is one of the things that actually catapulted this channel. And I owe a lot to that. Particularly with Akira Toriyama, I owe a lot to him for doing that. Like, if he didn't produce this awesome property, I would not be in the position that I am in now. There's a lot of stuff that I don't have that I used to have because of a house fire, but some things I do have. I know a lot of people remember these toys right here, the If Lab toys that were produced by Jax. I have these. This is like one of the things that I have that I always cherish, that was able to be saved from the burning house. The clock that I mentioned earlier, not one of those things, and hopefully I'll find that clock somewhere. I'm pretty sure it cost me a pretty penny now because it's one of the rare items. But as you can see back there, you're probably noticing a lot of Z's. Dragon Ball Blu-ray collection. I got my Dragon Ball Kai, which a lot of people don't like, but I love it. I'm always going to buy Dragon Ball Z merch. Probably not as much as I used to, especially with Funimation / Crunchyroll kind of like doing whatever they can to make money, even with low quality, low effort Blu-rays that they've been producing. But Yeah, I just really love Dragon Ball Z and all the different things associated with it. And it's just unfortunate that going forward, anytime we do have a new property that's being made that was originally created by Akira Toriyama, it's just going to have a bittersweet feeling just knowing that he isn't here, because even to this day, even though he's not directly associated with these properties and he's moved on to other things, I'm pretty sure he was always the person that whoever else was handling the property, mainly Toei, they would still consult with him to actually see what they could and couldn't do or shouldn't do. That would mess up pre-established elements to the story and the characters. Like there's just so many different things that people want to see done right. They want to see certain things acknowledged. I'm pretty sure Toyotaro does his best to produce great stories and stuff of that nature, but I'm pretty sure he would always go to Akira Toriyama to see what he should and shouldn't do. Dragon Ball Minus, which is one of the newer properties that's coming out. This is something that Akira Toriyama was directly involved with, and the proof is in the aesthetics of the characters, because, usually with Dragon Ball Z characters, they have a very muscular, very sharp physique. But these right here, they're going back to what Akira draws like, what he really draws like. Because if you guys are like big fans of Akira Toriyama, you know that he had other properties that look distinctly different from Dragon Ball Z, even though they did have that DNA embedded in them and that Akira Toriyama style. We've had stuff like Chrono Trigger, which was one of my favorite RPGs, and Dragon Quest, which is very big in Japan. So many different things. Blue Dragon, a lot of things that have dragon up in them, this guy had involvement in, like he actually lent his artistry to bring these worlds to life. And we were going to see that with Dragon Ball Minus. We've heard so much about him being re-energized and more enthused than he's ever been to just return and, generate newer ideas to the Dragon Ball IP. We saw that firstly with stuff like Battle of Z and what's the other one? Dragon Ball Super Broly. With Dragon Ball Minus. I forgot. Was it Dragon Ball Minus or was it? It's a new show that's coming out. I forget the name of it, but the characters look chibi. If I'm not mistaken, like Goku gets turned back into a kid. Like there's just so many different properties that I can't really just think of right now, especially since my mind is racing and I don't even know how to go about making this video. It's just I just want to share my story with you guys and let you know that you are not alone in how you feel about this whole situation. I'm pretty sure everybody's had a similar story to mine, somewhat similar. But yeah, man, always cherish the greats, always keep them in mind and respect the craft and the things that they've actually shared to you in the world. Because like I said, if it wasn't for Akira Toriyama, a lot of us would have never interacted with each other. We never would have, probably shared our love for Dragon Ball. You hear stories about how these guys who we consider like godlike mangaka artists and writers, they share these things with us and they're making so much money off of them, but you never hear about them being braggadocious. Like Akira Toriyama, you barely see that many photos about him because he was a recluse. It's crazy that all the greats that have impacted us, that produced all these mangas. You have people like Kentaro Miura, who created Berserk, another recluse. A guy that really didn't just go out of his way to do a lot of interviews or brag about his works like a lot of creators over in the West do. Like you have guys like Bob Kane, who would always wear a cape and just express that he is Batman, the creator of Batman, or the so-called creator. I know it's kind of mired in controversy on who did more out of him and Bill Finger, but you never got that with a lot of Japanese mangakas. Like I could say the same thing for the creator that made Ghost in the Shell, Mamoru Oshii. You never hear about him. These are just guys that share their visions with the world at large and they become overnight success stories, but they still retain humility. And I think that's what a lot of people need to have, because I've noticed a big divide within the community when it comes to Dragon Ball, because you have people that feel like they are super elite fans and they go out of their way to, trash talk others that produce content, and then they're trying to share their opinions on things, but sometimes they're not favorable opinions, or maybe they make a mistake, or they are, people just feel like, hey man, they suck. I try not to be that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to have that kind of mindset, but now I'm one of those people that I just want to continue to share my love with other fans and people that aren't interested in Dragon Ball. I could get those people into it, and I feel like that's my duty with going forward, especially talking about Sparking Zero, which is one of those things that my dad, I think I had a closer relationship with my dad because of Dragon Ball Z games, which started with Budokai 1. It went all the way up to Tenkaichi 3. Like, anytime my dad would ask me what I wanted for Christmas, I would just tell him, get me this Dragon Ball Z game. Get me Budokai 1. Give me Budokai 2, 3, Infinite Worlds. Oh, there's this game called Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi. Didn't you already get that, son? No, this is a different one. Get me that. It was just pretty simple. My dad didn't really have to think too hard about it, and he got a chance to experience me playing the game. So those are moments that I always try to cherish and, continuously thank Akira Toriyama for. So yeah, guys. I'm sorry if this video is all over the place. It's an impromptu video. I wasn't expecting to get on camera and just talk like this, but that's just all the different memorable moments that I have in my life that were deeply impacted by Akira Toriyama's son. So I just want to give my condolences to his family member and his loved ones, and also the community at large, because I feel like we were an extension of his family, and I just want to say rest in peace to him. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you got some out of this video. I don't want to say I hope you enjoyed it, because this isn't a moment for me to just create incitement, but I do want to bring a little piece of glimmer, a little shine to this situation, and maybe put some smiles on people who've had similar childhoods to me, or similar experiences when it comes to the Dragon Ball Z property, or any other property that Akira Toriyama has produced. Like I say, there are just as many Dragon Quest fans as there are Dragon Ball fans. So yeah, but this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.